BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast, where livestock farmers and horse owners are asked to rethink their approach to using treatments for parasites to avoid an increasing resistance.
What we're really looking for is a holistic, evidence-based approach to parasite control, to use just the right amount that's needed and not more than is necessary.
We'll have more on that a little later. First, all week we're following the harvest around the country. And just a few days ago, a Lincolnshire farmer, Tim Lammiman, was celebrating breaking the world record for oilseed rape with a yield of 7.52 tonnes a hectare. The new world record is nearly 3 times last year's UK national average yield. Mr Lammiman said he delayed drilling well into September to avoid cabbage stem flea beetle, and he added an early growth-stimulating liquid feed in the early autumn. This year's heat in early summer and the subsequent drought appeared to favour the crop. Well, Mr Lammiman isn't new at breaking records. In previous years, he set world records for yields in winter wheat and in barley. Unfortunately, in the same part of Lincolnshire, the pea harvest has been breaking records for the opposite reason: very low yields indeed. Peas are one of the UK's favourite vegetables and one which we're normally almost self-sufficient in. But this year's small crop might mean we're looking to other countries for supplies. Nina Pullman went to meet Stephen Francis, Managing Director of pea cooperative Fen Peas, just as the final field was being harvested. He told her how the weather had devastated the crop.
Welcome to the final field of the 2025 pea harvest for Fen Peas Limited. We are a producer organisation producing hopefully 10,000 tonnes of peas, but it will not be happening this year because of the weather we have had. From really South Lincolnshire up into the lower Wolds, which is where we are now. Beautiful scenery behind you. We can actually see Lincoln Cathedral.
So we can see a pea viner in front of us that's harvesting peas. Just talk me through what's happening in front of that big yellow viner in front of us.
It's always difficult to describe, but what I say is the pod has got a weak point, like a banana does or whatever as well. If you were to get a pea pod and throw it at a brick wall as hard as you can, it would split at the weak pod and the peas just fall down. And that really is what happens in the machine. It is very clever, and then once the peas have come out of the pod, gravity lets them drop down through the screens onto a long pea conveyor, which is the whole length of the machine. It then goes through an elevator, but prior to that there's a fan that sucks out, blows out a little bit of trash. So we're trying to get as clean a product as we possibly can. You can see in the window behind you a tank that's filling up with peas, similar to people seeing a combine. And our aim is, we're not doing them today because we're a long way from the factory, but our aim is to harvest and freeze the peas within 150 minutes.
So we can see some pea crops on the ground of this field. Are they what you would expect at this point? Are you happy with the crop?
No, at this point I'd expect them to be much thicker. If you think a pea pod has probably got 8-9 peas in a pod, these have got 4 and 5, and when you think about that in percentage terms, that is one hell of a difference. And so our yields at the end here are, I'm going to say devastating. I was going to use disappointing, but they're more than devastating. We literally fell off a cliff 2 weeks ago, and our final 20%, 25% have been bitterly disappointing.
I know when we spoke about a month or a month and a half ago, you were saying it was too early to say, and obviously in the last couple of weeks that's really come out, hasn't it, in terms of how this season's going to play out?
It has, you're absolutely right, because you just don't know. And we were going along really, really well, and then one night I just felt like we'd fallen off a cliff, and you question yourself, what have I got wrong, what have I misread, what haven't I seen? And there are 14 obviously do this in the UK. We all know each other, and I contacted one of them, and I was pleased I had. He was in exactly the same boat, and I can only put it down to the warm nights we had, followed by the strong winds, that literally just put the pea plant into survival mode, didn't know what to do.
So you've not struggled so much with the low rainfall then?
No, we haven't. We definitely haven't. The reason I believe that is that the soil conditions in the spring were so good. We could get the peas into moisture. If you can get a pea to germinate it will be absolutely fine, because that pea root can go down about 30-40 centimetres. It really can travel. But yeah, it's the savageness of Mother Nature's wind and heat has done it.
You had a good start to the season, but I can see it's not been an easy last few weeks.
No, not been easy, but we've still got smiles on our faces. We're already thinking about 2026, where's the varieties coming from. PGRO, our research organisation, they've got all their trials in, they will start disseminating the results from that. We are only evident for 8-9 weeks of the year, but it is most definitely a 12-month cycle.
Stephen Francis, Managing Director of pea cooperative Fen Peas. Well, it's not just crops which have had a difficult year. Conservationists are reporting a drop in the number of barn owl chicks being raised, and they say it's the worst breeding season they've seen for decades. BBC South's environment correspondent Yvette Austin has more.
With their white plumage and distinctive heart-shaped face, barn owls are a sight to behold, hunting along field margins in the countryside. They're mostly nocturnal, so seeing them is fairly unusual. But there are fears they could become an even rarer sight. Volunteers who check nest boxes say they're finding hardly any baby owls this year.
In the 5 years I've been monitoring barn owls, it's the worst year I've experienced.
Terry Hallahan is a founder member of the Sussex Barn Owl Study Group.
We visited in excess of 100 boxes and we've ringed less than 10 chicks so far.
That is really
low. It's that bad.
Each breeding season, trained volunteers are licensed to check the health of young owls and put rings on their legs. Just 2 chicks are being ringed at this farm near Lewes. Their age can also be estimated by looking at a specific wing feather.
The length of the 7th primary, counting down from 10 from the outside.
This one is just 3 weeks old. It's covered in white fluff and is only beginning to get proper feathers on its face and wings. The check all helps the British Trust for Ornithology learn more about the owls' lives. Martin Flores is a licensed bird ringer.
We've had images submitted to us of owls hunting across fields, and the colouring clearly visible, which allows us to identify right down to the individual of which chick they were, of what nest and where they've come from. So that's, again, really positive, and again helps start to map the population of Sussex, of barn owls in Sussex, and where they're moving around.
But what it doesn't do is tell the volunteers why this year is so poor, and so they're enlisting the help of researchers at the University of Brighton who are studying what the owls have been eating by analysing the contents of their pellets, the regurgitated remains of prey that the owls can't digest. Dr. Maureen Berg is an ecologist involved.
So here we've got a beautiful skull of a vole, we've got the nice little eye sockets, and then we can see that it's got nice little orange incisors. So looking at that pellet, we can see that the barn owl had a lovely vole for dinner. And the idea is to look at the bones that are present in the pellets and have an idea of what they're eating and if they have sufficient food, and we can link this with the quality of the habitat. So if there's enough grasslands, hedgerows and so on, they can provide good habitats for those owls and their prey.
Sussex isn't the only county where barn owls are struggling this year. In Kent, I've been monitoring my own barn owl box since 2017, and this is the first year, even though I've seen the adults out hunting, that there aren't any babies. One possibility is the wet winter affected the owls. Also, their favourite food to hunt is the field vole, and it could be that numbers of those are low this year too. Theories the scientists will be looking into.
Yvette Austin reporting. Livestock farmers and horse owners sometimes rely on blanket treatments to make sure their animals don't get infected with parasites when they're grazing. Well, now the British Veterinary Association is warning about resistance to some medicines and advising farmers and horse owners to only treat animals which show symptoms of infection rather than using the medicine as a preventative. Anna Judson is Senior Vice President at the BVA.
Well, what we're really looking for is a holistic, evidence-based approach to parasite control, just like we've done very successfully with antibiotics. So there's already a very good track record of vets and farmers working together to make sure that we're using those as responsibly as possible. And we would like to do the same thing with parasiticides. And we really strongly feel that it will require a little bit of a change of culture, which also requires a much more joined up approach from all the suppliers and the users of these products to make sure that we're all focused on the same goals and making sure that we're using them as responsibly as possible.
So why do you think farmers need to have this approach now?
Well, there's a real concern amongst veterinary professionals about resistance to treatment of common parasites in large animals. And we know that's obviously that resistance is influenced by how we use these products. And that has a huge health and welfare risk for all stock. There's a growing body of evidence to show that there's an impact of these products on invertebrate species in the environment, which also then affects biodiversity and soil health. These products will get into the environment through either perhaps runoff for things like sheep dip into watercourses. Many of them are excreted via the urine or the faeces, which obviously are then left lying around in the land that they're on, which can then have either localised or more regional impacts on many of the soil invertebrates and microorganisms.
So is there a tendency to blanket treat all your animals just in case?
I think it's a big thing to take a risk of not treating. If you know that there's a season when certain risks are going to be higher, it feels very often more comfortable to say, well, let's preemptively treat, let's blanket treat a whole group of animals. But we have to balance that risk of parasite infections in the short term with what the impacts might be further down the line. Because if we build up resistance, we're going to have fewer products that we can use in the future. The availability and the affordability might go down as we've got a restricted number of products and types that we can use. So I think what we have to do is to say, yes, there's an element of security to cover every animal for everything, because we think that will protect us. But whilst it may have an immediate short-term benefit, it's likely to potentially could have longer-term harm. And we need to just review how we approach doing that.
There has been known resistance to antibiotics, and that actually has caused a problem in human health. Is this similar to that?
I think there's a great deal of comparison which is sensible here. And what we don't want to do is be in a position when we are left where there are no products that we can use when they're really necessary. And certainly we're reaching that point in certain infections in people, and we know that that's likely to increase. And that's why there's been a real drive and a real imperative to make sure that we use antibiotics responsibly. And this is really just an extension of that, but looking at parasiticides.
Do you think that farmers and horse owners are being encouraged to use treatments when maybe they might not actually need to?
One of the benefits in terms of reducing antibiotics has been the restriction of advertising and sales incentives. And we think that the same thing should happen for parasiticides as well. So we would like the Veterinary Medicines Directorate to work with the National Office of Animal Health to perhaps consider how we restrict those and make sure that everybody goes through the right routes, the best routes, to ensure that they know what products to use in the safest manner possible. What we're looking for is to use just the right amount that's needed and not more than is necessary. And I think adverts can play a part, or reducing the number of adverts can play a part in that.
Anna Judson from the British Veterinary Association. That's all from us. But if you do have news of your harvest on the farm, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us by email. It's farming.today@bbc.co.uk. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.